Good evening, everyone. I apologize for being a little behind tonight. I have a sick kiddo, so being a mom, you know how that is. You have to attend to babies first. So I apologize again for being a little bit late tonight. Babies are all down and asleep, so I'm hoping that I will have some uninterrupted time to spend with you all and to cover today's Milky Mama Monday topic. I sent out a little note earlier saying I'd be hopping on live here to go over 3 ways menstruation can affect lactation. And some of these might be a little surprising for those of you who are breast or chest feeding. This is really great information to know to have in your education bank for when this happens for you. So, just to dive in, since I am so behind tonight, I first, of course, want to say every body is different. And, when you have your first postpartum period, very much depends on your own personal physiological, biological makeup, as well as a few other factors. And one of those factors is definitely whether or not you are exclusively breastfeeding. Research shows that exclusively breast or chest feeding parents typically experience a longer window of being period free post birth than those who are not exclusively breast or chest feeding their little ones. So, when this can make its reintroduction into your life kind of depends on you and your circumstances. But what I wanted to cover tonight are the 3 effects that when your period does come back, what it can have on your lactation journey as a whole. And there's a lot that goes into this, but I wanted to focus on these 3 things tonight. And some of these things may make it a little more difficult or uncomfortable for you to continue breast or chest feeding. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So the 3 things that I want to focus on tonight that your period can have an effect on for your lactation journey is milk supply, tender breasts and nipples during feeding, and the taste and composition of your breast milk. So those are the top 3 things that we're going to cover. So really quickly, I'll just go into each one, and then we'll kind of talk about what we can do for some of these circumstances. And the very important caveat that I want to mention is that this is all very much temporary. So if you are experiencing any of these things, please don't panic. It usually does not last more than a couple days, up to a week during your menstruation cycle. So that's very important to keep in mind, not to panic if you do experience maybe a nursing strike or some of these other things that we're going to talk about. So, as far as tender breasts and nipples during your feeding, or even outside of the feeding time frame, you might be uncomfortable. And this is usually around the time of ovulation, which is mid-cycle for your menstruation cycle. And it can make it a little difficult for you to continue feeding your baby. So I know that that can be frustrating and hard, and it hurts. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the things that we can try during this time is different positions to see if that can affect the tenderness of your breasts during your feeding sessions, as well as, you can talk to your doctor about maybe taking a little bit of an over-the-counter pain medication like Tylenol or something along those lines if you're really, really uncomfortable. Something else you can try doing, there's not a whole lot of research to back this up, but if it feels good and it does no harm, I say go for it. And that can be, applying either some ice or warmth, depending on if that which one might feel good, might give you some relief. In between feedings, you can go ahead and try that. And I do know a lot of parents find comfort in those little gel, I can't think of the word right now, but they're the little gel patches that you can apply in between your breastfeeding sessions as well. And sometimes that can help with the nipple soreness. So those are just a couple tips that you can try to help with that soreness during your period if you are experiencing that. The second thing that I mentioned was it can have an effect on your supply. So around ovulation time, our estrogen and progesterone levels actually increase, which I'm sure we're all aware of based on other hormonal things that we have going on, right? Mood swings, all those things. But they increase, and that can also have an impact on your milk production. So you may notice or experience a dip in your supply. Again, I want to reiterate the importance that this is temporary. It should only last a couple days. So again, don't panic. If you can try to nurse, if you are sore and you're trying these other remedies to kind of help with your soreness and tenderness. It's super important that you continue to bring babe to breast if you don't want this dip in supply to become more of a longer term issue that you're struggling with, because as you all know by now, being in this group for a while, milk production is a supply and demand relationship. So you want to make sure that you are continuously removing milk during your menstruation cycle, so that, like I said, that the dip in supply that you may experience isn't a more long-term issue that you're struggling with. Some parents find it more bearable if the soreness is really, really bad to pump versus latching baby. So that is something that you can try if it's just so painful for you to nurse during this time, but usually that's a very extreme case. I wanted to make sure I didn't have any questions. I am going to be checking for questions if y'all do have some, so sorry about that. I get in my own world here on my soapbox when I get into my training sessions, but I have them pulled up. So if anybody does join and you have questions, I will be sure to pause and answer those. And if you are catching the replay and you have questions, don't be afraid to hashtag replay and drop those, because I always come back through and make sure I'm answering any questions you might have. Anyway, so back to supply. Make sure you are still removing your milk, whether it's from latching baby, if you are able, or continuing to pump so that your supply isn't impacted long term. And one surprising thing that some studies are showing is that we can also experience a decrease in calcium levels during ovulation, or actually after ovulation, which they are showing in the research may also have an impact on the nipple soreness and your supply. So that's kind of an interesting fact there, because perhaps we can focus in on our nutrition and really make sure that we are eating foods that are higher in iron is another big one too, that we can experience a dip during our menstruation. So high iron foods, calcium foods, perhaps even a calcium supplement if you're worried about not being able to get enough calcium into your diet through your food, but that is what I highly, highly recommend doing if you are able, because it's the most bioavailable to your body to restore those levels. And doing that may have an impact on your nipple soreness and supply if you're experiencing a dip. So that's kind of an interesting fact I wanted to share with you as well. And the third thing I wanted to cover that your period could have an effect on as far as your milk goes is the actual taste and composition of your milk. So this is a pretty big impact, more for your baby than it is for you during this time frame. And it may not even affect your baby. Some babies don't care that there's a change in the taste and composition of the milk, while others might be a little bit more fussier, a little bit more of a refined palate, and they might not enjoy the change in the composition and taste. So you may end up experiencing a little bit of a strike, a nursing strike. So that's something you might have to work through too. But just a quick overview of what happens is The breast milk composition actually changes right around that ovulation time again. Sodium and chloride levels actually increase, while our lactose or the milk sugar and potassium decrease. So your milk ends up being a lot more salty than sweet during this time. And that's why some babies can experience perhaps a dislike, and they might show that in a nursing strike, or they might be a little more fussy at the breast, and that may be why. So just wanted to share that little tidbit with you so that you can be educated on what might be going on during this already kind of hormonal time frame in your postpartum experience. But the biggest takeaway, again, that I want to share is please do not panic. A lot of these things are very much so temporary during your cycle, and after a few days, things should level out, and your supply should come back. Your changes to the breast milk composition change again, and they can bring it back to maybe more of what the baby prefers, and you should be back on track again. And I do want to say that some women don't experience any of these things. Again, every body is different, and every experience is dependent on a lot of things, including your nutrition, how often, if at all, you are breast or chest feeding your child. Your period may come back sooner if you're not. And so many other things that can affect this. But the best way to ensure that you can make it through these challenges, if you do face them, is caring for yourself. Okay, so make sure that you are getting your rest so that your hormones are, you're giving them the best fighting chance of trying to even out after your period and during your period, and getting those nutrient dense foods in so that you can help support those fluctuating iron levels, calcium levels. All of those things can be very, very helpful. So I'd love to hear if you learned something new from this training, if you have a question about something we covered, or if you have a question that's related to this topic. I'd love for us to start a conversation. Go ahead and drop that in the comments. And as always, if you need support with your lactation journey, especially if you are experiencing your period for the first time or you're having issues with a nursing strike with your baby, I want to encourage you to please set up a consultation with me. I will drop my link below so that you have that available to you. I do virtual consultations over a HIPAA compliant platform, so it is a secure video and messaging platform. So everything is safe and secure, and we can meet over the computer and we can try to get a plan going for you to help you get back on track if you're struggling. So I hope you all have a great night. I am going to try to get some sleep. Hopefully my little one isn't up. He's had a horrible fever this actually since yesterday afternoon. So we've been really fighting that every which way we can. So wish me luck. Hopefully that'll break tonight and he'll be a better, well-rested little guy tomorrow. So hopefully you guys have a great night. I'll see you in the group.